Alright, so here we are in Blender. I've just opened up, I've got my startup file to open up blank, but if you've got those couple objects in camera and light, just go ahead and select all that and delete it. Let's see, I've got this screencast keys on, so you should be able to see down here what it is that I'm using. I'm not going to go over how to run through the whole interface and all that. There's plenty of Blender videos about that. One thing we need to do first though is you need to have your X-Plane to Blender script installed, and so to do that you would find it online. You can do that with a simple Google search. Download the file. Don't unzip the file. Just download the file. Then you'll go right here to User Preferences, and then Install Add-on from File. You would select that. You would find your file. Find that zip file. So you would select that zip file. You would hit Install Add-on. I don't need to do that because I've already done it. But so you just hit Install Add-on. I guess one thing I should point out is when you do that, then you can search right here, and it should look like that. You want a checkbox on it. With that checkbox, then hit Save, and it should be installed. So then you'll find it over over here in the world. When you install something new, it's going to end up down here at the very bottom. I've just moved mine. You grab like this and you can reorganize. I just moved mine up here where it makes it a little easier, quicker for me to access. I don't need all that stuff on top of it. Another thing while we're on this tab real quick is units. I'm using Imperial because that's the units that I used in Playmaker, and that's just the units that I'm used to. By doing that, the units you put in here should transfer directly over to Playmaker. There shouldn't be any scaling issues. Let's add a quick, so right here, this bar here, you bring that up with N. We're going to add some background images. I'm just going to throw one in really fast. Let's see, where did I put those? So let's just go to my airplane because I'm pretty sure I put them there. Project. Side. Okay, now notice I added it, but nothing showed up. We're going to hit 5. I actually hit 5 and 3. You can see down here, so I'm not going to call out everything I do. But and so there it is. You'll only see it if you're in the ortho view. If you're in perspective view, you don't see your images. To change between ortho and perspective is 5 on the numpad. Okay, so here we are at our side view. First thing I need to point out is this is going with the nose to the left. This Y, so that Y pointing off to the right, Y to the right, Y positive, is also where your nose should point. So I'm going to come over here on that image we added and flip it horizontal like that. So now our airplane will be pointing the correct direction. The next thing that I want to do is get our scale correct. So I'm going to add just a cube right here. And this cube, let's shrink all this a little bit. So these dimensions right here is what I'm going to adjust on that cube to make, and then we'll scale our image. So let me find this real quick. So I've got length of 23 feet. So we'll go right here, and because I've got it in Imperial here, my Y I can put to 23 feet, and that gives us our length. Now let's jump back to this with a height of 6 feet and 11 inches. Our height is our Z, so we're going to go 6 feet 11 inches. Okay, so that gives us that, and then might as well throw our wingspan in here real quick while we're at it, with a wingspan of 35 feet, which is our X, so 35. Okay, so now that box there is the dimensions of our airplane. I'm gonna jump this to wireframe so that we can see what we're looking at on our background image, and I'm just gonna adjust this image to fit that size there. So I'm gonna drag our scale here, and then our location we're gonna actually adjust once we because we're gonna need to put it into Blender. But so that's got our length on our background image set up correct. And so now, just really fast, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to hit M and move it to a different layer. I'm just going to drop it down here. That's just my own personal preference. I like having those on a different layer, and then I can bring it up when I need it. So if you hold Shift, now we're looking at two different layers. So right here, I'm just going to add a really quick cylinder. Actually, let's hide that. See, now I put my cylinder on the wrong layer. I want it up here. Go back to that layer. Okay. Now this cylinder, I'm going to tab to go into the edit mode, and let's see everything. Now this isn't supposed to be pretty. I just I'm trying to get a feel for location, and so we're gonna just set it up something like that. Something like that. Okay, and then we're also going to let's just add another cylinder. Jump to our front view. Rotate that like that. Another thing, so we only want to see this image when we are in our right view, so we'll come over here and tell it we only want to see it when it's right. So then when you jump to a different view, you're not seeing it. Jump that like that. Okay, so now back on this cylinder, I'm just going to scale it really fast to get an approximate. And the only reason for this is to make sure our background images are in the right spot for when we actually start doing our serious modeling. So now we're going to come up top here, and since I don't have a top image yet, let's add a top image real quick. So let's see, we got that one there. Open that. Open. Okay, so this one needs to be rotated by 90. And let's tab out of that so we can bring up our box real quick. that's right, I hit it. Alt-hide, Alt-H to unhide that. Okay, see, so now we've got that, so now we can, let's turn that back to wireframe. We've got our little outline, so let's scale our image. Okay, notice it looks like our length is correct, but our wingspan is not. And so we will want to adjust that on our image. But for right now, we're just going to scale that out here, and we'll take it all the way out to right there. Okay, and we can also, not that it makes that much of a difference, but we'll Shift D, duplicate that on the Y. Oh, and I forgot to tell this image that it is top view. There we go. Okay, so now, just on this layer, we've got just a quick shape of our airplane. And so now what we're going to do is just, well, first thing we want to do with this object is give it a material, because X-Plane doesn't accept, or the export script doesn't, it gives you an error if you don't have a material. So we'll just call it that, and let's see, we're on that material, hit assign, and that should be enough for it to accept things for now. And then let's see, we want to go here, add X-Plane layers. We are on layer 1. It's an aircraft part. I turn this off because it never seems to work for me. Okay, and I think that's all we need to set up for the moment. Yeah, it does say I'm using a beta. Once again, not supposed to do that. But, okay, so let's do a quick export. X-Plane object. Into your airplane's objects folder. We'll call this test. And export. Okay. If you did something wrong, you're going to get an error up here. Usually it's because you didn't assign a material. One other thing we're going to do real quick is get Control S to save, and save your file somewhere. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to save it in there. Okay. So we've got that saved. Let's check our folder real quick. Objects. There it is, fuselage. So, really fast, because I think I'm already stretching this a little bit too long. But real fast, we will jump into Playmaker. Okay, we've got Playmaker here. We're going to go to Standard MISC Objects. Select Add. Right here, click this box to look it up. Fuselage is what it ended up naming it. Open that, and there you see it. We're not going to mess with any of that at the moment. But you'll notice that it doesn't line up. Luckily we are pointing the right direction, but it doesn't line up exactly the way we want it to. So we'll go back to our MISC objects, and for some reason it's not letting me adjust what we're looking at the moment, but we'll just go give it a side view, pop it into wireframe. So we're going to go MISC objects, and we're going to adjust this. Now we want all these to be 0, and so we're going to fix it in Blender so that these will all stay at 0, but to know where to move it in Blender, we're going to move it right here. So now remember I had the tip of that right at the tip of that spinner, so about there, and it actually say height wise we were pretty close, but it looks to me like there's some things that are still a little bit off that we're going to have to adjust with our scale, because clearly something didn't work. I thought I had adjusted my images, and so maybe I may have pulled in the wrong background image. But anyway, so you're going to tweak it until you've got it sitting how you want it in here, and then you're going to take this number down. You're going to write that down, and then we're going to move it that amount in Blender. So to show that real quick, so you go ahead and file and save, close that, and come back here to Blender, jump over to this view, and say, okay, well this whole thing needs to move, and it was like 5, I think. So we'll go ahead and select all, and then grab it on the Y. I'm watching down here in the bottom left corner, and you can see we're like 1 foot right there, so we're just going to move it back to 5.1-ish, like that. Okay, so now it's moved, and so then we can do another quick test. We can go File, Export, leave it all as is, and go into the same objects, Export. Okay, now hopefully that overwrote our file, and so then if we go back into Playmaker, which I should have just left open, now you'll see the airplane's too far back, and so we go back into our standard and our MISC objects, and we drop these all back to 0, and we should be in our right position. And so you just tweak that, tweak it in Blender, back and forth until you have it lined up just how you want it, and then you use that for your reference in Blender. So now that we've got it set up here in Blender, we need to adjust that background image, and so we go to our one that's on the side view, and whoops, that's not where I wanted to offset it. Put that back, we offset that image and get that where we want it. And then once you've made sure that it all lines up correctly, then you can go ahead and build everything you want, and you're going to know that it's going to show up in the right place. And that's where we're going to end this one for now, and we will continue on and start actually making a pretty 3D model in the coming videos.